Everyone back to the numbers game. I've got my co-host back. I went solo last week. I was like Patrick Cripps in 2018, just exposed. But Lek Dog, the great man, in the middle of about 8 fantasy drafts, joins me again. Lek, how you doing?
Yeah, mate, I am in about 17 different fantasy drafts. But I'm well. You can see I'm in a different setup, and that is because I'm in between houses at this point in time. So staying in my mum's house, which, as you can tell by the decor, slightly different to my place.
I just want to caveat that for the audience, that's not like when your mate who has lived with his mum and he's now 45 says he's in between jobs and his last job was the work experience placement. Lek isn't officially homeless, so don't worry about it. He is in between going to an absolute mansion, I believe. I believe it's going to be sheer Lek Dog. I'm looking forward to the housewarming party. But Lek, quickly, before we crack in, preseason, how much do you read into preseason from a fantasy perspective? Obviously, there was a lot of games this week, some playing some weird roles. Are you what kind of credence do you give it? If a player's had 10 this week, are you panicking?
No, I'm not a big preseason panic, change my mind sort of person. I guess injuries factor in, obviously. I think all of your locks, your big name players, if you've locked them in, even if they have a shit preseason game, you don't stress about it. The interesting stuff is more your role-specific stuff. Your Kitty Coleman, who was a lock because he was playing off half-back, comes out and plays in the forward line against the Blues. So it's more that sort of fringe positional stuff for me. I don't really let it influence me on the guys I'm honed in on.
I'm going to be totally honest for those watching at home. When we do our team reveal at the end, I have totally disregarded Lek Dog's information there, and I have panic called someone, like a literal panic call. I'll be totally honest. I'll explain it, but I mean, let's get into it. So, what you're going to see before your very eyes now is you should see this sexy color-coded Pom book. So what I've done here, if you've been watching the reviews of the games, you probably know. If you haven't, you'll be like, how have you done this, Pom? Well, basically, in my part-time, I'm a maths genius. But no, what I've done is you get very limited to stats. So big shout out to Keeper League, who produced a lot of these stats. We created a little bit of an algorithm which gives us the stats that they've correlated and then a rough average of what normal fantasy to SuperCoach looks like. There's a lot of secret sauce in SuperCoach, like impact, things like that. We've done a very core over 5 years of data, giving them a baseline. So these are, on testing, there were about 7% margin. So let that sink in. 7%. That's not so bad. 7%. Do you know what I mean? If I was 7% bigger than my wife's ex, I'll take that. 7% is a big increase. But here we are. This was Hawthorn versus Geelong. Obviously, 17-point win for Geelong. And we talked about this guy a lot, didn't we, in our earlier episodes? Connor McDonald, Will Day 2.0.
Well, knowing that I was coming onto this show, I just made my draft selection for the latest round in my SuperCoach draft, and I took Connor McDonald. So an intriguing option as a forward line player. If he's going to be the one that fills that Will Day void in the midfield, well, you can expect an average of 85 to 90 plus, priced at about 370k. He's a bargain if the role's there.
Ned Reeves, 98 provisional. Lots been made of the new ruck rules. In this game, there was a lot of rumours that he was overtaking Meek. We saw that. Is that something that we just put down to practice, give it another week, see what happens in this week's games? Or are you thinking the more mobile ruckman is going to be the guy that you look for?
Yeah, I'm not sure in terms of ruckman in general what to make of it yet. I need a little bit more data from this. It does look early, like clubs are going for the more mobile one. Specifically, to Hawthorn, if Ned Reeves gets the job over Lloyd Meek, well, then he becomes a really relevant SuperCoach option, because I think this is the year to go cheap at R2 if you can. Nick Bryan, Ned Reeves, Liam Reidy, if any of these guys get a starting role, I think you have to look at them as a way to save cash and generate big points.
What were your thinkings on Geelong? Very well spread. And this is kind of a SuperCoach trend in my research. Everyone kind of steals points off each other in SuperCoach. Anyone that stands out there from Geelong, like James Warple, is awkwardly priced, isn't he? So is Mark O'Connor. They're an awkward team to pick one, aren't they?
Yeah, they don't really ever provide us with much in terms of SuperCoach value. The draft, they tend to bat deep because everyone averages like sort of 80. Very, very hard in SuperCoach Classic to know where to spend your money. Lennox Hoffman's an interesting one for me. Just I thought St Kilda had him as an academy player. I thought as soon as he got to Geelong, he was going to become a superstar. So he's one I'll probably watch. I am assuming he's rookie priced, but I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you.
When you look, just before we move on to the next game, because everyone wants to talk about Carlton, day 2 were Premiership favourites, but Ollie Dempsey played a lot of inside minutes in this game, particularly. Potential role change, because that is a guy that scores pretty well off the wing. A little bit more centre-bound stoppage attendance. Could he be the smoky Lek?
Yeah, I mean, someone has to score the points there. I've got a feeling Warple probably averages around 90. Dempsey's interesting because we have seen him produce like decent scores before. Like he has it in him. Honestly, I just want to stay away from Geelong altogether because they've got like, Tanner Bruin, who may or may not play. They regularly drop players with those laid outs. They're kind of a trap team for SuperCoach Classic. Ollie Dempsey, I've just pulled up 420k. Again, awkward price, but might have the role. I'm probably not starting many of these guys, but you may look to upgrade later on.
Well, Tanner Bruin was the one that we all wanted to see lay out. So we have no doubt on him. I mean, maybe Scott is trying to manipulate SuperCoach and he's entered it under a guise.
Yep.
But yeah, hopefully we see him this week because I think he's probably the most relevant, isn't he?
He is if he plays. It's just a lot of question marks over that.
Because you mentioned rucks. Mitch Edwards did quite a lot of the rucking in this game. 119. Everyone probably has a 119 R3 ruck. Is that a watch this space for you as well, Lek Dog?
Yeah, mate. Like if there's a playing R3 ruck, even if he doesn't have forward eligibility as well, you take him. Take the green dots where you can, generate the cash. If he's playing, it's a bloody it's a bargain.
Mate, and then we come to the game. And you can see here quite a lot of scores. Benny Ainsworth, can he do 4 goals every week? If he can, I'll be less miserable. Dane Zorko, as always, boring consistency. But I do want to talk about one of my big calls this year was Will Ashcroft will become in the conversation of Bontempelli Dacos, best player in the league. He had limited minutes. He wasn't on the ball all the time. It was about 70% minutes played. Absolute stood out like a sore thumb. Will Ashcroft, is he, if you're looking for a POD, I think for me, that's probably where you can have a little bit of a sexy POD, that 500. For 550 just below, is he worth it?
Yeah, look, he's priced at the same as Sam Walsh, a little bit cheaper than Errol Goulden, a little bit cheaper again than Caleb Sarong. I'm starting all those 3 guys, so I don't have room for him in my team. But I do think he's a player that, like, I just want to... We know he can score. We know that Brisbane have a good role for him, but I just want to see how it all sort of lands. And given they're going to have... I think they've got an early buy. I'm happy to wait on a Will Ashcroft, but I don't think he's going to disappoint you. I'm just not sure if he's going to, step it up a notch to the Nick Dacos level of scoring we'd like him to this season.
The ones from Carlton I'm intrigued at, and to get your perspective, we'll start with the rookie, Taylor Byrne. if you had to put money on, guaranteed to start for Carlton now, you would say he outshone all of the guys who are probably third in line. You'd probably say Haywood, Ainsworth, Walkup starts considering Carlton bought him. He's probably put his name up in lights, probably inching ahead of Frankie Evans, because Frankie Evans at the minute has got the glasses on. No, that could be a pretty intriguing role, couldn't it? Because I was looking at it. Look at Fogarty's score. Fogarty last year averaged 64. Taylor Byrne does look, according to my draft research when I kept doing videos, he's Fogarty with goals. Is that I think that's a shoe-in at 113.
Yeah, look, it's that rookie priced play. If they're playing, you take them. The downside with guys like that is they do need to kick goals generally to produce scores, but he will be, and pun intended, a slow burn selection. But I think his job security is pretty good. So, as I've said sort of to you a couple of times over these videos, our teams, we can build our teams as much as we like in the preseason. The rookies who are selected in round one kind of dictate what the team ends up looking like. And if we end up having 4 or 5 locked in best 22 forward options, which Byrne could very much be one of, we're going to have to restructure our teams. But we're also going to be really happy because forwards notoriously are hard to find and generate cash from.
The last couple I wanted to talk about Carlton, I want to look at Wade Dirksen. Now, he's not on the list, but I've done a bit of research. Jag Silvani, 76 points last year, right? He is basically that Jack Silvani negating, marking role. We saw him do it very well. Based on Carlton's injuries and Lewis Young's form, you would imagine Wade Dirksen, should he come on, has high potential to play. We'd guess he's going to be, 119? Around there?
Yeah,
that rookie.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe cheaper, maybe 113.
But looking at his game, 63, that could be a little bit of an option, couldn't it? Because I don't think many people will back Wade Dirksen in. I think if Carlton SSP him, he plays. 100% plays.
Yeah, if he can bring the VFL form he did for several years for GWS over, he was an All-Australian or All-VFL, whatever it is, best, whatever the equivalent of their All-Australian is. He was the defensive player of the year or in the defensive team of the year. Has a history of scoring at the lower levels. His role was messed around a bit. But again, I think he's better than Mitch McGovern already. So slightly different role, but I think there's a spot for him. If he comes on, plays well, I don't know how Nick Haynes gets back in ahead of him. So again, job security. And I do think he can go 60 plus. The question will be, how many rookie defenders can you take in your team? Because it's looking like we're going to have quite a lot with your Eulens, Gibcus, Carmichael, Lindsay, those sort of guys. So it's just how many can you fit in? But agreed, I think he's a good option. But I don't think speaking of good options, I don't think we've had a weird flip here where Kadeem Coleman was lock of the year, and now I don't want him in my team. But my man, Lincoln McCarthy, I know he only scored 37, but if he's playing in defence, he's in my team.
He was heavily rotated as well in this game. You saw that they kind of unveiled that after half time. I know you were hot on him. Interesting role, isn't it? Because like you say, the ball accumulating old age pensioner is the most in vogue AFL thing at the minute. I don't mind it, Lek. He's cheap and we're looking for forwards.
That we are. And Kadeem Coleman playing in the forward line is, we do not like that one bit.
Yeah, he's going to have to do it. I mean, the one thing that I do want to just highlight before we move on, 77% of the world owns Jagga Smith. This guy did it from 42% of game time. That's an 86-90. How that's not 100%, genuinely.
He should be in 100% of teams. I don't understand how he's not. And the other thing to take into consideration with these scores is they're probably actually a little unders, Pom, because of the 3,300 point rule in champion data. All of these scores would get inflated, so we hit that 3,300 number. So he probably got it's probably actually higher. It's probably a 100 plus score across a full game.
Look, honestly, yeah, you're smoking strong, dodgy cigarettes if Jagga Smith's not in your team. That's all I'll say. Here we are. This game was probably the tie of the round in terms of just watchability. I'll say I really enjoyed this game until I realised Charlie Curnow plays for Sydney. But a 33-point win for Sydney against, has to be said, a C-grade doggies midfield. It wasn't their best, but a few takeaways from this one. Errol Goulding, Charlie Curnow was one-on-one hit by Goulding like nearly every time. But my boy, Connor Buderick, we talked about him as the one to watch last time we were here. Buderick looks like he's got a bit of a ball-playing role, Lek, as well as that lockdown.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't he? Traditionally sort of used as a dour defender up at the Gold Coast. Bit of a sort of tagger, but not through the midfield. 245 as a forward. We love players who move clubs for a specific role. If this is the role that they envision for Connor Buderick, he's going to very much outperform that price point. There is quite a lot of cheap Western Bulldogs forwards I like, though. Treloar, if he's healthy, I like. Fraser, I like a lot. So are we going to end up with a full Bulldogs forward line with Sam Darcy there as well?
It's interesting that they're a traditional good scoring team I found in SuperCoach, which doesn't surprise me because I do a lot of data on the season and dogs are the deceptive side because they always look sexy on the stat sheet. But Lachlan Bramble as well, very intriguing role there. Obviously, they were literally heavily rotated, so you'd imagine that the big names will come back next week. But he's a guy that always gets picked by Bevo. He's probably got very good job security as well, hasn't he? The Bram dog.
Yeah, he does. 358k. He's probably too much for us to consider in classic, and I'm laughing because I remember when my good friend Patch took him in the first round of our Dynasty League, and then he was delisted at the end of that year by Hawthorn. But Bramble, Buderick, we've seen a million players like this before. McNeil, go if Bevo likes them and they get bought into the club, they just play. Oscar Baker is playing for this team, and he did a lot last year too. So we've got to watch this space when there's more players back in the team, but there's a number of names that I like a lot, including Lockie Carmichael, who I'm not sure if he actually ended up playing or not. I don't think he did.
He didn't. No, he didn't. He's scheduled to come back next week, they say. On Sydney, Jai Sarong played about 2.5, 3/4 quarters. Looks an absolute lock at that price point, doesn't he?
Yeah, every year I go in with like that. There's always one key defender that is underpriced. He's got guaranteed game time, and he's always going to be a slow burn. And I prefer them over the quick hit guys that play 2, maybe 3 games and then get dropped. I think Sarong, look, he might only go up 10k a week or something. It might be a really slow burn, but come the buys, it just gives you one extra option. And points on field are worth a lot more than I think people take into consideration. So he's in my team right now.
And would I be correct in thinking the top 5 for Sydney there on your screen? Heaney, Blakey, Goulden, Curnow, Grundy, all great options. Like Charlie Curnow, I was heavily debating because he's that sexy 350 value. And watching him in Sydney colours, he's going to go at 70 goals this year.
Maybe what you can do if you kick the ball to someone. So 86 in 2022, 98 in 2023, 83 in 2024, and then a shit year from SuperCoach perspective in 2025. If he gets up to that 85 plus at 377k, he's a bargain. If you don't start him, you'll have a couple of opportunities to sort of jump on and see what he looks like in the real stuff. But all of a sudden, and this seems to happen every year, we go into the season going, there's no forwards, and we end up with quite a lot. They're just all slightly inconsistent, but that comes with the position, to be honest with you.
It's going to
Nick
be
Blake is a
interesting.
bloody lock. I know he's in both of our teams, or at least he was in your team last time.
He is.
He's in
He
my
still
team
is.
this time.
He still is. He hit the Blakey Goulden Kerner combination. I hate to say it, was Fat Town, but we're looking for forwards. Sammy Flanders, he looked a bargain buy in this game, but I don't want to give too much glaze. I want to look at Max Hall, though. Max Hall looked integral as that conduit, played that kind of Hayward role that we saw Carlton versus Brisbane, being the link man as well. But a lot of bargains at St Kilda if you can get them. Like Sam Flanders looks a lock, Max Hall, and maybe he's a POD. But Mateus Philippou, a lot of people were thinking he was just going to live on the forward line. Quite a lot of work around stoppage, had his on-ball rotation. There's some bargains at St Kilda because they look like Audi Western Bulldogs.
Pom, I was literally about to say the same thing. I was about to say they're the new Western Bulldogs. I'm a little annoyed that Max Hall went so well because I'd written an article last week of smoky players to consider in SuperCoach. He was one of them, and now it's going to look like I wrote it off the back of this performance, which is very annoying. But Max Hall at 400k is interesting. Sam Flanders at 400k is a lock. Mateus Philippou is now a lock. We've seen it. Hell, even, and I'm not picking him, but I can't believe Jack Carroll's looking good this year. That's how well they're all running around. What did you make, before we talk about Gold Coast, of the ruck setup for St Kilda?
Thought it was interesting. It looked like it's going to be a heavy lopsided towards TDK, but Rowan Marshall being more impact. It was quite interesting. I noticed when we were watching it live, TDK kind of floated behind the ball. Rowan Marshall floated ahead of the ball. I know you were a big defender, TDK, in when you was a Carlton player. I think that's quite intriguing because I feel like TDK is going to surprise people as he gets up to speed. You could see he was doing a lot of things right. It was a new midfield core that are looking to run with it as opposed to bash their way through it. So TDK is definitely one that I've got like yellowed in for this week. Like, just let's see how that synergy builds.
Yeah, I like it. I agree. You've convinced me a bit on TDK, that him playing behind the ball, as someone who was begging for it 22 weeks a year on a show with you for about 3 years. It's music to my ears, mate.
Well, there was 3 players I wanted to talk about Gold Coast. One, Petrarca I'm going to spoil the end of this show. Petrarca walked into my team. Absolute. Like, I was surprised it was only 74 because I felt like everything Gold Coast did, he was a part of it. He looked like their flag-winning Petrarca as well. He looked free, being that little link man, wasn't that bogged down on the outside a lot as well. He looks dirty at his price.
I mean, he's never left my team, to be honest, and he's the sort of impact player that gets scaled up in SuperCoach. So he'll kick the clutch goal, and that 74 jumps to 100 with one kick. So, yeah, he's a lock at that price. He's not too expensive. He probably doesn't dip too much at any point in the year, so get him in now while you can.
And I want to talk about, I know Lombard is in a lot of people's teams, and I think he's a good option, but I watched Dylan Patterson, and I felt like Dylan Patterson might nudge ahead of all these draftees. I was hot on him in the draft as well, but he looked exactly like a dimmer halfback. He was really eye-catching, and I wanted to swing it your way, Lek. Ned Moyle, I don't know if it's just because Jared Witts is 255 next year, but Ned Moyle took the majority of the centre bounces, but intriguing, spent a lot of time at full forward as well, playing as the foil for centre half forward, who we know when the season starts proper is Ben King. Is Ned Moyle, Lek, at 324, R2 worthy? Should he play?
It's an interesting question. It is a slightly awkward price. And I don't think Jared Witt stays out of this side for too long. In fact, I think he probably ends up starting the side. I think teams are just testing the waters with dual rucks, seeing the new rules, how they work. I think I've just got a feeling in the end we're going to come back to Jared Witts as the main ruckman there for at least one more year. But like, if for whatever reason we're given an indication that no, he's not going to play, well, all of a sudden there's another starting ruckman option sitting there for us. So one to watch, need more information. Rucks are really tough at this stage.
Look, trust me, I've changed my R1, 2, and 3 almost hourly since the last show. But this was probably the best game to watch, not from a quality perspective, but from rookie watch, because this is basically where I'd imagine 90% of everyone's rookies are between these two. We'll start with Richmond, who got absolutely battered, it has to be said, in this game, but Sam Grill stood out like leprosy at a gymnastic competition. He was literally phenomenal, involved in everything good and bad Richmond did. He stood out, particularly the first quarter where Richmond looked like 2017 Tigers, the way they moved the ball off the halfback line. Working up left wing, left half back, Sam Grill, he's awkwardly priced, isn't he, for a rookie? Because he's not the bang cheap one. He's encroaching 1.6, I think it is, isn't it? 160k, isn't it, around there?
Yeah, he's 170-ish.
But he looked like everything went through him already.
I mean, this is why I preach this to people who ask and people who listen. Pick your team with the expensive rookies in it, because if they don't play, it's easy to move them on to a cheap rookie and do some upgrades. If you build a team with only cheap rookies, when Sam Grill comes out and does this, you've got no way of getting him into your team. So prepare as if all the expensive rookies are going to be good. And Sam Grill, I mean, he seems like a lock at 172. I'm very excited for him. They've also got Sam Cumming. They've also got Josh Gibcus, who, hasn't played a lot of footy over the journey, but 140k, he's going to give you value. There's heaps to look at here in the Richmond outfit.
Do you want to hear a mental pom call as well?
Go on.
My boy. Everyone knows I'm a sucker for an Islander, but Lafau playing in the ruck, Lek Dog, as the ruck relief in the forward line, 149. And he was incredibly energetic as well. If Richmond were shit in the second half, I reckon that could have been a real big game as well, because he was the pick of that forward line for the majority of the game as well. Real one to watch. Keep an eye on that this week coming. But he did a lot of the ruck relief and even did some of the centre bounce rucks as well. So I feel that is an untapped market. Only 1% of the world own him. I was very tempted this week, very tempted based on this game.
Yeah, keep an eye on it. Again, I think we're going to have lots and lots of forward rookies to choose from. So it's going to be exciting.
The Bombers, I do want to talk about Jacob Farrow. He had the ball 1,000 times, and it was about the 22nd minute mark of the third was the first time he didn't get a target hit. This guy is monotonous. And already with Archie Roberts looking like he's going to get about 30-40% midfield minutes in this game. He spent a lot of time ahead of the ball, did Archie. Another good user of the ball. Farrow, even though his score doesn't reflect it, instantly screamed to me, he's him. He's him. If Essendon are to improve, Farrow will be a huge part of it.
Feels like a good draft from them, doesn't it? Farrow, sharp.
Very nice.
They've got Hussein Al-Hakar on their team, who I don't think long-term for SuperCoach is going to be a great scorer, but did well in this game. It's actually bargains galore at Essendon. They're in a similar spot for SuperCoach to Richmond. They've got Blackiston as well, who's playing that ruck relief role, and they've got Darcy Parish, who's I'd like to talk about Darcy Parish. I mean, if he wasn't already a lock in everyone's team, I think he's going to be now.
I did talk about you in this live, and everyone will be pleased to know I followed you in on Darcy Parish. I fell in love with the Parish in this game. He looks back to his best leg. And I don't want to kibosh him, but he looked like prime Darcy.
I mean, and it's purely the concerns over the body, right? So, if you can get the string of games at the start of season for us, it doesn't really matter what he does after that. This is a guy who used to be priced at what Nick Dacos is currently priced at. He was averaging 114, 111, 108 back in the day. It's a big asterisk, but if he just gets back to performing close to like somewhere between last year where he averaged 88 and only played 3 games, and somewhere between 2021 where he played 22 games and got 114 average, I'll be happy. Give me a triple figure average over 10 games. That's all I'm asking, Das.
I've got to say, my Pom big call at the minute, and shout out my boy Tatum's Tantrum. I am all over Blackiston, man. That guy is full-time rucking. I reckon with the injuries of Bryan and Vicentini being overlooked for this game, I reckon Blackiston might be the ruck all year, like.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I know my mate Jesse has him in the flex position, waiting for him to get that ruck eligibility at round 6. So watch that space.
Mate, so have I. So ruin it for you all. So have I. Loving the Blackiston. This game was intriguing. GWS reserves versus Collingwood's under 18s with a couple of old guys. Wasn't a great game from quality, but Kieran Briggs absolutely took the pina colada. Now, does it count? Because there wasn't Darcy Cameron. I think it would have been a different game if DC was playing. But Kieran Briggs looked very menacing, Lek Dog.
Yeah, I need to see. Like, Briggs, we know, has the ability to score in him, but it's hard to use this as a jumping off point because he didn't really have much opposition in the ruck. Averaged 109 in 2023, then dropped to 96, and then dropped again to 79 last year. I think he's a triple figure averaging ruckman. Is that enough for us given the plethora of cheap guys we've already talked about? I'm not so sure. But one guy that intrigues me, Pom, and this guy was also in my article that still hasn't gone live yet on Code Sports, was Harry Rouston. And literally my article, I said, someone has to score points in the midfield for this team. Why can't it be him? And he came out and he did it.
Mate, there was quite a few of them at GWS. Ralston did. Harvey Thomas was really nice as well. Fonte as well, playing almost that Darcy Jones role that we saw last year, was really entertaining. So I think it's a great call by you. If you can work out who that guy is, because they all like rotated in that position, hence their big scores, you might be a genius because they're all tantalisingly priced. I did want your opinion before we go on to Collingwood. Clary Oliver. Look at their fixtures. They're playing some bang average sides in the first 6 rounds. I feel like Clayton Oliver was just going through the motions. I think you might see a return to the vintage Clayton because he was basically doing it all. Because, let's be honest, no Green there now. He's the only man.
It's interesting, isn't it? He's either going to average 90 or he's going to average 110. And if he averages 110 plus, then he's one of the bargains of the year at 500K. Probably taking that Sam Walsh, Errol Goulden slot in your team if you're going to pick him, maybe, which is like that Will Ashcroft slot as well. His benefit is that he has a history of scoring and that he's cheaper than those guys. His downside is that it's been a couple of years since he's put up really elite numbers for us. So I'm really torn on Clayton Oliver. My gut says pick him. I picked him last year. I held him all year. Ended up on my bench as a guy averaging 90, which I was happy with. But it's going to be hard for me not to pick Clayton Oliver come round 1.
Yeah, he did look good. And a big shout out Nick Madden. Lek Dog knows I like my statistical probabilities. And Nick Madden, if he plays, I am telling you, like, I'll go on record now. He is a 10-year GWS ruckman. I love Nick Madden. Loved him in his draft. Did some really nice things. These ruck rules are made for Madden as well. Very mobile. Watch this space. I know Briggs probably holds pole position after this game, but I watched Nick and I was like, I'm just gutted Tom Green isn't there, because I think if Tom Green was there with Clayton Oliver, you could press that button if you're GWS and go, He might be a bit lightweight in the contest, but boy, oh boy, he's a very clever footballer. But Collingwood, Ron Steele, man. This guy is playing that awkward role that I feel like Collingwood just struggled with last year. They rotated Josh Dacos through it, Dan Houston. It felt like they were always being undersold because you want them more centrally with the ball. I really liked how Ron Steele kept his width, his elite work rate and running, allowed players like, when the season starts, Josh Dacos to stay on the ball, and Mr. Dan Houston, who played predominantly halfback like the Port Adelaide. He's one that I'm really intrigued about, Lek, and I know the feedback from Pies fans is he's the man this year. They've got big raps on him. Almost played the vintage side bottom role. Like Dog is the best way I could describe it.
Again, like they love someone who's got the name Steele, or the word Steele in their name. So that's one tick already. It's 196K for those playing at home, which makes him one of the more expensive rookie price type players. Again, if he's a best 22 player, it's hard. You've got to consider him. It's just about how many of these guys can we fit in. Can he maintain high scoring in a role like that traditionally doesn't score that well, particularly for younger players, but he'll have a good floor, but maybe not the ceiling. Watch and see, but it's nice to know there's some rookie price players for Collingwood. I'm still waiting for them to get Harry DiMattia into that team at some stage, but maybe I'm still waiting on false hopes because I think he got hurt again. God, I just want to see him play one game.
Mate, I'm with you. He's a very talented footballer. I mean, if you're looking at rookies, Tyan Prindable, by all reports, killing it, looked very accomplished out there. Very accomplished in the minutes he did play. But I want to give a wrap out here. Danny Houston, playing, like I said, high halfback, that position that we saw at Port Adelaide. He was kind of moved around. It took him a while to get used to the Pies way because a total different one. But he's tantalisingly priced, Lek, at $4.31. And I'd love your opinion on this. Only a couple of years ago, this guy was your Nasir price, wasn't he? Like, I haven't made that up, haven't I? He was valuable.
Yeah. Started 2024, priced at just under 600K after averaging 106 the year before, and then he averaged 107 that year. So he has the capability to do it. He's only done it a couple of times. But this is traditionally where I would spend my money in defense on guys like this. Nick Newman priced guys who are around that 400 to 450K mark. He does tick that box. He has a history of scoring, and it's not that long ago. It was only 2 years ago he was scoring 107 points a game. He's on my watch list, and he is someone that even if you miss him at the start of the year, you will be able to pick up later on.
Mate, he's an intriguing prospect. Like, I am very intrigued by him. But we come to this game, which was an entertaining fixture, it has to be said. We've talked about rucks. Jerry concerns me here, Lek, that we did see the new rules. I felt kind of as an example, and I was surprised because I felt Jerry, if everything everyone said about these ruck rules was true, I felt like Jerry would be protected because of the high tackle numbers he does and the defensive stuff and the fact he always gets in there. But this was really took me back like that. At that price, I think there's a huge risk because he's the most valuable ruckman, isn't he?
Yeah, there is a risk. There's a risk with anyone at that price. It wasn't a good showing from him. Max Gawn is $2,000 more expensive than him, actually. But he was he did average 127 last year, Tristan Jerry. The thing about him, which I said last year and it was kind of untrue, but I was worried that his tackling was unsustainable because it was like record level tackles from a ruckman the year before. And then he backed it up pretty well. But I still have that sense of, is it actually sustainable? Is it? And I have some question marks. At no point has he entered consideration for my SuperCoach team. So if that gives you any information, viewers out there, that's all I can say. He probably comes out next week and dominates and scores a 130, and then you don't feel so stressed. But
He probably does. It was just, I thought this was one with him being that price. This is one where if I had him in my team this week, I'm really just thinking, is it preseason? Is it practice? Is it the role? Or is it a little bit more deeper? Because if no offense to Melbourne, but they weren't really ruckmen.
yeah,
No offense to Max Heath.
there's some red flags for sure.
But my boy, Keziah Pickett, oh my word. Honestly, it was like the first time I found the hub watching this game. Pickett is ridiculous, but his cousin, like, oh my word. Like, I remember doing the draft profile and I was huge on Latrell. I do like big
You were?
Latrell. They were scary watching them two together. Like suddenly, dare I say it, I bully Melbourne as the most boringest team to watch aside from Carlton. This just said to me, oh my God, this is going to be excitement town, because even Langford was exciting. Like, suddenly they've gone from dour to really exciting. Like,
I mean, you're right. They are exciting. They both valid SuperCoach options this year. Consistency, just because of role, is going to be a question mark over both of them. Cozzy, I guess it doesn't really matter. If you're going for rank, total points at the end of the year is all that matters. So he's someone that you can carry who's going to go 140 this week, 70 the next week. And then as a cash cow, he's Latrell. Is like 150k. It's like, what's the real risk? He could only average 50, and maybe that bites you on the ass, but I think he'll have a couple of games early where he sort of goes 80, 85 and gives you a real spike in cash. So they're both valid options. They're going to be frustrating options, I think, but across the course of a season, I think they're both reasonable selections.
I was huge on Caleb Windsor as well. I still am. I really liked him in the limited minutes he played. I really like Caleb Windsor. He got involved. It was a tough game for a batsman because, honestly, in the second half, I think the only time Melbourne penetrated inside 50 of North Melbourne was when they actually ran out for that second half. And you could maybe class that as forward half time, but genuinely this second half, the defenders at Melbourne could have lit up darts and started talking to the fans like they weren't troubled. I felt sorry for Melbourne at times. I think that accounts why Xavier Lindsay and Co's scores were so low. Interesting, Ed Langdon as well played that more Blake Akersy role. That defensive half-back wing pseudo. That's an interesting one to watch, because should Melbourne be under the cosh, as we know with Blake Acres for Carlton, the stats usually deceive them because they're the outlet ball.
I think, I think that's very interesting, and they're probably looking at how they can build for when what's his name? Their winger's off the list, the one they've had forever. What's his name? Was there, came over from Brio. Anyway, Colton Tholstrup, and he's not SuperCoach relevant, but I think they're switching things up there. Colton Tholstrup was playing off half back. He's played in the forward line his entire career to date. They're willing to switch roles. They're willing to try things at Melbourne. So exciting, interesting, potentially dangerous.
Port Adelaide. This game was a ripping game as well. It's amazing, these two sides, that it doesn't matter if it's a proper game or a Mickey Mouse game. There is a little bit of chutzpah in this game, and I wanted to go sound the pom alarm. Riley Philthorpe as a winger. You have read that right. A lot of working high up the ground, almost floating through the midfield at times. Dare I say it, imagine a Mark Blitzarbs, but one that looks scary. Very entertaining game by Philthorpe, but suddenly, knowing how many goals he can kick as well, he was a real target. And I think this was a shrewd move by Nix, because I think the big issue I had with Adelaide last year, by a country mile the sexiest team to watch, in-game control was probably to their detriment. And I feel like you've got a 60, definitely like a 65-plus goal kicker, who with the different role, you might see getting 18, 20 touches, like.
Yeah, look, if it's real, it's interesting. I know I'm just trying to pull up Harry Mackay's numbers, and he wasn't playing on a wing, but Mackay had it one season where he pushed up the field. I think he averaged about 100 in that role, predominantly marking on the wing. So he averaged 87 and 86, but in that season where he averaged 87, he had a period where he's averaging about 105. If Phil Tilthorpe has that role, like, it's intriguing because he scored well last year, basically just as a forward target. He's priced at 525k. Last year, averaged 97. It only takes a couple of extra possessions to turn that 97 into a over 100 average, and I think there's only one eligible player in SuperCoach right now that's forward eligible who averaged over 100 last year. So, interesting. Who are they? Who's gonna? If he's on the wing, who's kicking their goals other than theoretically Taylor Walker?
It was just that it was look. It was more like a rotation. So I'd watch this space, but it leads me to my next guy. McAndrew slid forward as well. So I felt Riley O'Brien was fit for this game, Lek Dog. So it's been confirmed to me by Adelaide Nuffies that I know, good mates of mine. He was totally fit. So he was totally fit, should have played. They're under the illusion that he's not going to be in the seniors this year. That they were pretty much I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's McAndrew. McAndrew looked like he is going to be the main man. Like genuinely looked like he was going to be the main man.
Which is bizarre, given Riley O'Brien was out of contract. They've extended him. There was options to trade him. Clubs looked into him. They've held him. But like Lockie McAndrew, he's your typical second home ruckman. Started off in Sydney's list. He's going to be rookie priced for us. And if he is the starting ruckman, well, then you might be able to get away with two rookies in the ruck this year. It's interesting. It's bizarre, but the way Nix works, I checked in with my Adelaide Nuffy friends over the week, and if you're in the best 22, you're in the best 22. If you're not in the best 22, you've basically got to put 2 months of form together to get back in. So if McAndrew starts, you'd expect him to have a long-term spot.
No, I'm with you, and I'm very intrigued by it, because, genuinely, like I say, he was noticeably... McAndrew was noticeably their main ruckman. Genuinely, I'd be shocked, if he isn't it. And I think job security-wise, he's got job security.
Well, let's talk about the other side of the ledger. They were missing a couple of players that are probably the more interesting ones from a SuperCoach perspective. But Connor Rosie, who's in a lot of teams as a defender mid, about 560k, he would have locked himself into quite a few more teams. And then Will Brodie would have done enough, unless there's an injury that I've forgotten about, to lock himself into anyone who didn't already have him.
Yeah, he rotated. He rotated in there. I'm still not convinced he plays though, Lek.
Okay. I guess they do have Ollie Wines out for the first 3 weeks, I think, of the season. So there will be a spot, at least for short term, for someone to take.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin anyone's life, but I don't think he is a guarantee to play. If you know what I mean. I think watching him, I was like, I think he's going to be 5th, 6th rotation, if at best. I feel like we're blindsided by the price, but
yeah, it's and what I will say is we talked about it last week that the Port Adelaide staff came out and said yes, he will play AFL level. And if you go back and read those comments now, they don't say when that's going to be. It was less of a he's going to play round 1, and it's more like, yeah, he'll be in the rotation. Interesting.
It's going to be interesting, but I mean, the final game we got on to here, Luke Jackson proving to the world, genuinely, I think he's going to be the biggest scoring ruckman this year. I'm going to put my neck on the line. I think he'll be the highest scoring one per minute, points per minute versus price. Reckon he is the most economical selection because he looked amazing, and at times he was plodding, Lek Dog. At times he was plodding, but playing that more of a midfielder, I would say, than a ruck, like another Blitzarbs to look at. It was a very Blitzarbs in a ruck performance, sometimes lining up on the ball, sometimes the pure ruckman. Many surround stoppages. I think he's a surefire thing, Lek.
I think the other thing is he can score even when there's another ruckman in the team. Like he can just play as a midfielder, which is bizarre given he's 7 feet tall. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's at least top 3, if not the number 1 ruckman for SuperCoach this year. He's a bloody beast.
And Sarong. Now, I was surprised by this, Lek. I went through the data, only 12%, so that I would count that as a POD.
He's in my team.
He dominated, bro. Like, dominated.
His back end to last season was awesome. I think he had some injury niggles throughout last year, but the back half of his season, he actually outscored Andrew Brayshaw from memory. So he's locked in for my team at 570k. I love him.
Mate, I was very impressed by him. And on to Eagles, I think Dersma and Josh Lindsay, absolute bona fide locks. Did like Schoenberg's game if you're looking for a cheap rookie, because I think he will play and so will Devon Robertson. But another POD, like Tom McCarthy, bro. I'm calling this because it was my idea to play him in the midfield last year.
It was.
Genuinely, this guy was brilliant, Lek Dog. Like, he looked like the best player across all the lines for Eagles. So composed, dictating traffic. He reminded me of Rory Sloan circa 2016, 2015, the main man.
Wow. Sloan was an awesome SuperCoach player back in the day. Yeah. See, thing is, Pom, you've convinced me so much that I'm trying to find a way to get him into my team because he's only 500k. And if he's playing in the midfield, it's free money. But the flip side of me is like he's only played 6 games or whatever it is, 10 games of AFL footy. But geez, he just looks so good. He looks so good, Pom.
Mate, honestly, I was very, very impressed with him. I really liked what I saw. I was intrigued. And I'm going to spoil it for everyone. He is in my team. I think he is the man. But that does lead me to look at Team Lek Dog. So if we look at Team Lek Dog, I should be on your screen now. It should be on your screen now. Mm-hmm. Lek Dog, here is your team.
Oh, yeah, you can zoom through. Great. Yeah, look, I don't really make that many changes to my team throughout the preseason, so this won't be what it looks like, but it won't be far off. So Nick Blakey was in the first version of my team I did. I think he points to price as just value. Johnny Noble's still there. He's kind of a holding position for someone. I think he actually provides value, but if you're comparing to a McCarthy, it's hard to go Noble over him. Coleman won't be there. The rookies are all just placeholders for now. Butters is locked. Dacos is locked. Sarong is locked. Goulden I'm not locked on, but geez, he looked good. Sam Walsh is probably locked. Young, Parrish, lock. One of the issues with this sort of team, Pom, is I haven't given myself any room for growth in the midfield in terms of upgrading. I'm probably got one too many premiums there because if someone goes bang and explodes, I don't actually have room to bring him in. So there's one thing to consider. The rucks, again, not locked on this, but the structure for me is going to be one expensive one, one cheap one rookie priced one. However that lands, I'm not sure, but that is going to be my structure. I'm not going in with 2 expensive ruckmen. Sheasel, Petrarca both speak for themselves. Fraser, one of Fraser or Treloar won't end up there. I like Fraser's upside, but he is that bit more expensive. Flanders lock, and then it's just rookies to run it out. It's a pretty basic team. Annoyingly, some of my pods are now not so much pods. Sarong, when I had him in there, no one else did. Blakey, I think still no one has him, but I'm sure I'll mess this up and bring in someone who no one has and it won't work. But that's how we roll. Mate,
I like it. I like I like the fact that you've got Jagga on the bench as well. I know it's just your place, hold it, your Shimo Jade, but I like it. I do like got some the rookies. Were blessed with it, but I do like that midfield line: Butters, Dacos, Sarong, Golden, Walsh. That does feel like 120 minimum every week, doesn't it?
Yeah, it feels good. Bont, I can't find a way to quite get in there, which would be the first time I think ever I haven't started him, unless he missed the start of last year. Dacos, I was going to avoid picking, but I just think he's just too good. He's just too unbelievable good. All these guys I feel like are underpriced compared to what I'm projecting they'll output. And that's kind of how I judge it. It's not so much do I like this guy, it's is he going to outscore his starting price? And I think the answer to all of these guys can be yes.
Mate, I like it. I like it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Mr. Lek Dog says about Team Pom. So you'll see there, Lockie Blackiston is on my ruck. On my flex. But Nasir Wanganeen, Blakey and McCarthy Caleb Rins and McCarthy and Wanganeen are the replacements. And the guy that I told you earlier that had shot in the head, Rory Laird, I was genuinely terrified watching the Adelaide game that it felt like he's totally lost it. And I don't think he's going to have that distributor role like I was banking on. So it looks like they've gone more Josh Worrell.
It is a worry, especially because all the numbers say Rory Laird is a great pick, but if the role's not there, the numbers ain't going to be there. So it's concerning. I can't really quiz anyone in your back line. Windsor's probably the awkward price guy, but I don't think that totally matters. Take us through the rest of it.
Yeah, and then pretty simple. I've downgraded Bontempelli because I've saved a bit of money elsewhere. Butters and Dacos. Dacos' state of origin, straight in. Butters' state of origin, straight in. Walsh, easy. But Jai Newcomb, now, he scores incredibly well in SuperCoach anyway. Without Will Day, I've got a little bit. Here's my Pom big call. Matt Rao, Tom Green last year started to increase their attacking output. Jai Newcomb resting across half forward, Let Dog. I'm all in. I think that's an extra 20 points.
Yeah, so he's another one. Yeah, when I did the blind rankings, ranking players by price without their names or anything like that, he's another one that came out really highly from that process because he's capable of massive scores. He goes on runs where for over 5 weeks, he's averaging 120 plus. At 5.16, he presents serious value. And I do quite like my midfield is a bit too deep with just one rookie spot on field, whereas you've got 3, which is slightly more traditional. But what it does allow you to do is bolster all these other lines, which that's what you could see, and you'll go through now. I do think this is a better midfield structure than the one I'm currently running with.
Oh, thank you, Lek. Hey, I got my first compliment of the year. I'm doing something right. This is where I've taken a risk on the ruck. I think McAndrew, I saw enough. Once I heard Riley O'Brien was fit, didn't play in that practice game, I was like, okay, I think that's an indication to me that they're saying, McAndrew, we're going to go this way, have the full game unaided and abetted. But the protection is, I think Blackiston will get the ruck status. So worst case scenario, I kill whoever doesn't play out of Reidy and McAndrew should he get dropped. Because I do feel like Carlton will play a 2-ruck system anyway. So I feel like I've got the protection. But then the forward line. I know the first time everyone hated my forward line. This was like Beethoven. All of these guys play midfield. So I feel like I've cheated a bit. But I really like it. And the bench. I really like. I'm confident all my bench play as well. So I feel like I've got loads of options to make money. And protection, because I think they've all got very good job security, with the exception of Schoenberg. But I think he gets in to that Eagles team.
Someone has to. Yeah, mate. I can't really critique this. I think forward line, I'm comfortable grabbing. I'd rather leave room in the midfield for players than I would in the forward line. If you can lock in guys who are going to play midfield like you have in the forward line, just bloody do it. I think it's a very solid team, and I don't think you'll need to make too many changes between now and the start of the thing.
I've promised myself this week I'm going to resist panic killing. I'll panic buy. I won't call anyone there. I'm going to stick on Lek Dog. As always, thank you very much for your time. What have you got planned? You mentioned an article that hasn't come up yet. Tell the people where it'll be when this comes live.
There's a couple of pieces going up on Code Sports. One is my Smokies to watch, which annoyingly I did write before the weekend, and now all the players who scored well over the weekend are in it. I've got my top 100 draft rankings revisited coming out in the next sort of week or so, and I'll be participating in a live draft for the Herald Sun team next Thursday morning, which I believe they're turning into some video content and stuff like that. So the next couple of weeks are probably my busy weeks for content, and then I go back into Carlton-focused stuff with you.
Hey, mate. Well, I look forward to it. For those watching at home, make sure you go get around Lek on them articles. Make sure you go and check out Lexi Does as well if you enjoy a little bit of artistic flair with role play characters. That's always worth it as well. Make sure you follow Lek Dog on all socials. They're in the description. By the time this comes out, you should be ready for some watch-alongs. There'll be a load of watch-alongs. We're doing the Thursday, Friday, Saturday game from memory, but by the time you're watching this, that should be confirmed. Thank you very much. Make sure you like and subscribe on your way out. And we'll see you next week.